So what we have here is a reasonably complex chunk of Scratch code. We have several variables, we have a couple of lists, and then we're asked a question at the end. What will the sprite say as this code is executed? And that last chunk of code is pretty complicated. It says, say, what is item index -2 of list 2 for 2 seconds. So what is that going to say? In order to predict that, we have to get in the habit of keeping track of values of variables as we're working through code. Now, if it's really long lengthy code, like say this is repeat 100 times, you would not work it through 100 times. So you look for a pattern, and that would help you to anticipate what the response or the answer is going to be. But I made it short enough that we can actually work through. So here's how you set it up. You want to create a little table that helps you track each of your variables and then what's happening with your list. So I have list 1, I have list 2, I have num1, num2, and the index. So I'm going to keep track of everything as we start working through the code. So when we click the green flag, that's going to set the index to 1. So I start off by writing down that the index is 1. Now I'm going to go through and repeat 4 times that code within the chunk. So I'm going to start by setting number 1 to the index. Okay, so number 1, I set it equal to the index. And then I'm going to set number 2 to num1 plus index times index, or index squared. So what is that going to look like? So num2 is going to get equal to num1, which in this case is 1, plus 1 squared. Okay, so, and that is going to be a total of 2. 1 plus 1 is 2. Okay, so now I'm going to add these numbers to the list. So number 1, I'm going to add to the list, and that's going to be 1. And then the 2 from num2, I'm going to add to the list. Then the last thing it says to do within the repeat bracket is to change the index by 1. So I'm going to increase it or increment it by 1. Okay? Now I'm going to work through the next repeat chunk. Okay? So set num1 equal to the index. Num1 is going to be 2. Set num2 to 2, the num1 plus the index squared. So it's going to be 2 plus 2 squared. And then once I get that result of those two numbers, I'm going to add those to the list. So I'm going to add 2 and then 6, because 2 plus 2 squared is going to be 6. So we have a total of 6 for list number 2. So list 1 and list 2 are going to be growing each time I work through the repeat. Now I'm going to increment index by 1 again. So I go to 1, and then I'm going to work through the third repeat loop. And I get 3 plus 3 squared. So I get 3, and then I get 12. And now I'm going to increment by 1 the index. And then I'm going to work through the repeat loop one last time. This is the last time through the repeat loop. I'm going to go 4, and 4 plus 4 squared. So that's going to add the list number to number 1. I'm going to add number 4 to it. And then 4 plus 4 squared is 20, so I'm going to add that to list 2. And then the last step inside that fourth repeat loop, so now I'm just about done, the last step is to change that index by 1. So I have methodically kept track of every variable and every list value. Now I can start to think about the question that's asked. It says, say, item, and then remember that item is going to tell me what is the index of the list. So where on the list 2 I'm going to look. But it says it's index -2. So now we have to evaluate like it's inside the parentheses. What is index -2? Well, the index value right now is 5. And so I'm going to take 5 minus 2. Okay, 5 minus 2, which is 3. So now I want to think about, okay, 3. So item number 3 of list 2. So item number 3 of list 2, if we look on my list and I see where's item number 1, number 2, number 3, aha, it's 12. Okay, so then I've worked through. Now, I might ask you other questions as well, but you need to be methodical in working through a complicated type of list like this, where you're keeping track of the different variables, different values in lists, so that you don't get confused as you're building these lists and then extracting values from them.